sue Rugby Australia or whatever. So let's move on, because I'm delighted to say we've got football journalist Rob Harris with us. I want you to have a listen to this. Here is his questions to Pep Guardiola after the FA Cup on Saturday evening.
Have you ever had separate payments from
Abu
Dhabi while City manager?
Do you know the question as you're asking to me? Do you know the question asking me if I receive money for another situation right now today? Honestly, do you think I deserve to make this kind of question and happen, Roberto? I don't know. The day when the travel about the I've received money for another situations.
Okay, we're running an embargo now, please, for 1 day. Just down the front, please.
Are you accusing me?
What's it?
Are you accusing me to receive money for under?
No, I'd asked the question some time ago, but
good.
I mean, it's only relevant because it came up again this week. That's why I said it was important.
Okay, pass the mic, please, Rob.
Rob Harris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Fair play to you for asking the questions. It needed to be asked, and the timing was impeccable. Did you know that you were going to ask it? Did it just kind of come up and you're like, okay, well, this is the kind of perfect moment to do it, or had you pre-planned that?
Well, there was actually a question before then, which did actually start with congratulating him on completing the treble, and also stating that while I was aware he isn't directly responsible for the finances of the club, putting to him the suggestion that in some way that the achievement has been diminished because of the investigations and the way that into the spending by the club. So there was an initial question, and because in that answer he then started to proclaim the club's innocence and talked about that, I thought, well, I should actually follow up with a question that's been unresolved since November, when I first put the questions to City, and some question the timing of choosing to do it. But given the fact that this week the financial fair play case was very much back at the top of the agenda, because the case had been passed from the UEFA investigators to the judges to rule on, it was very relevant to the context of the game, particularly as it centres just around how football's costliest squad was put together. And this is the last press conference, obviously, of the season, so it was the last chance to actually ask about this. What is a pressing unresolved question? It's not an allegation, it's a question, because we have these leaks that regarded Roberto Mancini's salary. So it was a question that has been unresolved over, anything over Guardiola's own dealings in Abu Dhabi.
And it's a question which is still unresolved.
Well, indeed, there wasn't actually an answer, as many pointed out, that he didn't just say no. There was quite an irate response instead to that, which, obviously he's been quite prepared for the previous answer about the FFP investigation. In fact, in some ways, it's, in recent months, it's been quite unfair on the club to put Guardiola as the man who has to be facing these questions in public when he isn't on the board of directors to answer the bigger questions about the financial fair play case. Because we've had this slightly incongruous situation in recent months where City's own statements at times have sort of basically been quite short and said they wouldn't comment further, but then Guardiola himself has actually provided a sort of more detailed response about his own conversations with the club. And I don't really think it's particularly satisfactory for people to hear publicly Guardiola saying he's asked the club and he's been assured everything's all okay. I think we do need to hear from one of the board members, and it shouldn't always be Guardiola who has to face these questions when it's not his responsibility, particularly because some of these matters from the league predate his arrival at the club. Obviously, the second question was very particular to Guardiola.
Yeah, could you just explain to us the Roberto Mancini story that people might have missed a while ago, and why some of these questions are relevant for the manager of Manchester City?
Yes, all these leaks that started to appear from November were Manchester City's internal correspondence, and it was showing some of the conversations about financial fair play compliance. They date back to 2014, when City's lawyers were seen to be discussing about how they could destroy UEFA over the financial fair play case. This was when they were initially sanctioned a few years ago for breaching financial fair play. It didn't lead to the Champions League ban that's in the offing now. It was a limitation on squad size for the Champions League and a heavy fine. But within those leaks as well, it showed other mechanisms to potentially try to circumvent financial fair play rules, such as sponsorship arrangements with Abu Dhabi companies and payments going back into those companies linked to the city ownership. Now, on the particular aspect over how a manager is financed, what we discovered from those leaks is that when Roberto Mancini was the city manager, he is alleged to have earned more while city manager's salary from an Abu Dhabi club linked to Sheikh Mansour than in fact his base salary at Manchester City. Obviously, we didn't really ever hear much at the time the fact he was ever consulting for this Abu Dhabi team, so it was quite a startling the fact he was actually, according to leaks, earning more from this Abu Dhabi team at the time in salary. So, it was a question put to City initially last November, is quite detailed around, is Pep Guardiola earning any salaries from any other parts of the City football group, listing various aspects, because obviously this group includes clubs as well in Japan, in New York, in as well, and other places, and because we've seen it on Mancini, and just to see whether Guardiola was also being paid from within the group or aspects linked to Sheikh Mansour and Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, okay, and I mean the point of that for anybody who doesn't quite fully get it is obviously that the payments appear off the books of Manchester City. Manchester City meet their financial fair play commitments and away they go, or not, as the case may have been previously. I want to play you this as well because I think this might actually be your own video. This is the City fan in the press box giving out about coverage of Manchester City. Have a look at this.
We've got the domestic fucking trouble. No one's ever done it before. But you all have Mo Salah on the back of the fucking thing, Mr. Lennon.
That's the security guards ushering as opposed to bustling the angry City fan away. The point about this is really that there's been a massive backlash against a lot of journalists who are writing about Manchester City's facile win in the FA Cup final as a result of the money, and obviously there are significant questions about how that money has been administered as opposed to just writing about the quality of the football. Basically, the sports washing has not worked in this instance, and it's interesting that the City fans have taken up the cause of their ownership in this.
Yeah, this has been rumbling for some time now. The fact City fans are effectively, they are excessively tribal in terms of defending their ownership to the extent that they see no problems at all. They basically see any reporting, often on the financial fair play investigation, as an attack or an agenda against the club, whereas actually, we are doing our job. They see any mention of the investigation, as I did last week when I was at Brighton when City won the title, as some sort of agenda as well against the club, when what regrettably a section of City fans who do turn to social media to send out the abuse tend to do is they tend to want us to quite literally ignore facts. They believe we should be, as journalists, denying often the public the context around the club, that we should only be acclaiming performances on the pitch, which of course is an incredible achievement by the group of players in winning the treble, or the quad if you include the Community Shield, rather than just providing what is necessary context. The fact that these investigations are going into the club. It's not just the UEFA investigation; it's also the Premier League, the FA as well. So there is a cloud over what City is doing at the moment. The fact they are under these investigations, and to not mention it would be a disservice to the context of the achievement. I mean, what we heard in that video was I found particularly annoying. It took a bit of time to decode the fact that apparently, which I didn't realise at the time, one of the papers last weekend on Monday after City's title win ran apparently a bigger picture of Salah at Anfield rather than City winning the title in one part of the paper.
Yeah, Pep brought up the Pogba story on the Daily Mail website as well, so it's obviously something that City are a little bit sensitive about. Rob, great stuff. Thanks very much for taking the call this morning, and keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot, and good to speak.
It's Rob Harris from the Associated Press who was asking those questions at that moment to Pep Guardiola. Let's move on. We're going to talk